Well, it is still good morning, Uganda. Time check is 8 minutes past 7 o'clock. My name is Olive Monica Najuma, and today I am joined by Robert Chirabo Nyonyintono. Chantal Olive is a bit under the weather, and we send our warm greetings to her. And I'm also joined by Joram Paul Sonko. Now, we have had incidents of school fires in the country for pretty much every year. There is a school fire that sometimes ends up damaging property and also claiming lives. In some incidents, we've been able to save lives, but then the property has been damaged. Unfortunately, this was not the case in a school fire that occurred in Busia, where 4 pupils are reported dead and others still nursing injuries in a hospital. But also this school fire is not happening alone. There was another school fire still in Busia, in another school, but at least in this one, there was no loss of life. Now, last year, we also had school fires occurring in different places in the country, but I would like to draw your attention to a school fire that happened in Masaka, where a fire broke out in a boys' dormitory at Kasana Primary School in Masaka, killing more than 4 pupils. Now, when investigations were done, it was found that the windows for the dormitories of this school had burglars installed in them. Now, the Ministry of Education and Sports has for a time been giving guidelines to schools on how the dormitories are supposed to be made in these schools. Now, in a new development regarding the fire that occurred in Busia, the government has directed a countrywide inspection of all education institutions with a directive to all district inspectors to close with immediate effect all those operating boarding sections illegally. This is where we are today. School fires, first of all, before we even look into this directive and why or not it is necessary, let's look at some of the guidelines that have been being given over time. The first big school fire, it's not the first, but one that brings memories to Ugandans, is the school fire that occurred at Budo Junior School. That was back in 2008, where we lost many pupils, and of course one of them, the hero, Yvonne Namaganda, who died while trying to save the lives of her fellow pupils when the fire broke out. Robert Chirabo, I'm sure you remember this fire very well.
Oh.
And with that fire, it set off a series of other fires in different schools. First of all, there have been guidelines given since then. What are some of those guidelines?
I want to say first, it's very unfortunate that it seems every year we must have school fires. If you go to the Police Directorate of Fire and Rescue Services, they'll give you statistics and you'll be shocked how many fires we register each year. They want to tell you we don't register less than 90 fires.
Imagine that.
Every year. Go to the directorate and they will give you statistics. We don't register less than 90 fires. What happens is that a number of these, we don't lose lives, we thank God. But also most annoying is that in these fires, 70% are caused by arson, meaning someone intentionally lights these fires. You remember that of Masaka, but for me, I can't forget Salama of that. I think about 5 died. Salama school of that day. Last time to me, I think it really made a lot of, why would someone? But going back to the first, I think, scene after the long Chichwamba that brought shock was the Budo fire. And then I remember I had General Kale Kaihura, who was the Inspector General of Police. Now, Ministry of Education and Police sat and came out with guidelines. And the guidelines were very clear. they said, one, you have a boarding section. First, it must be accredited by the Ministry of Education and Sports. Now, when ministry comes out, when we see Minister of State, Primary Education, Dr. Joyce Moruko Kaduchu coming out and directing all school inspectors in various districts to start immediately inspecting schools. And if they find any school that has a boarding section that wasn't approved by the ministry, that section must be closed immediately. Now, who is the victim? The parent and the people studying this school. Now, these guidelines included, first and foremost, one that has been violated to the letter. They said triple deckers were banned from schools. The only problem we have that parents, most of us, we are not allowed to go to the dormitory section in some of these schools.
Yes.
If you're a parent and you go to the boarding section, you drop your child and you proceed to the dormitories, it even amounts to a suspension or expulsion from school. But ministry said these triple deckers, in case of a fire, a child moving from floor 3 to floor 2, then stepping on the ground and running out is hard. So they were banned. Go to Katwe, go anywhere, triple deckers are made and they are marketable and schools are buying them. 2, they said a boarding section should have 2, if possible even more, doors. That in case of a fire, the students all don't squeeze themselves in one exit, because in a fire, many even don't die of the heat of the burns, but the suffocation. And some of these students, due to stampede, if a fire broke out here and we are maybe like 30 in this room, we shall all run to that door. The weaklings will fall, we shall step on them, and they'll die. So government recommended have more than one exit, that in case of a fire. 3, they said burglaries, because it is funny that most of these dormitories, for reasons best known, you find the windows are sealed. One will tell you we don't want these students, these pupils to escape at night. So when a fire happens, if those that are in the extreme corner cannot get to the exit, find it very hard to move out, because the windows are sealed with burglar proof, so you can't move out. So you end up dying. The ministries talked about spacing. Then they said for every boarding school, you must ensure that you have security, you have a guard that watches over at night. Now, this is the story, and I know Sonko can testify to this. That in most schools, the cook doubles as the night watchman.
Exactly.
During the day, Afasha is cooking.
And in the night, he's the guard.
In the night, Afasha picks a stick, sometimes a bow and arrow. Then they have these long coats, plus a torch. Afasha is on duty. Odong is on duty. During the day, he's mingling portion in those big saucepans. At night, he's the top security guard there. Unfortunately also, Afasha believes it is Waraji that keeps him awake. Now, he also has to put in a total 2 of this silica. That becomes another problem. But the ministry said you must have more than one, because if we have said most of these fires are as a result of arson, that means someone had to penetrate and beat the security of this school. Either have pour paraffin, petrol, then lit. The ministry went ahead and said, also for security purposes, everyone coming in, coming out, must be registered, recorded very well. Now, the outstanding, these measures looked at, then they talked of forming a committee, a security committee, that even includes students, because some of these fires were identified that some students are the ones that cause these fires. lit these fires. So apart from saying we have a committee of headmaster, the teachers, you must have a student. And also to sensitize, have regular drills, fire practices, fire drills in these schools. I want to tell you, I don't know how many schools. I know very few. And the police, fire and rescue services will tell you, for us, we are ready. But you can't come to invite us that these students have ideas. And the other was to have firefighting equipment. Now, this is also another big challenge for Uganda. Many people think they have fire extinguishers. But I can bet even in UBC here, if you put a fire extinguisher there,
How many can operate it?
how many can operate a fire extinguisher?
Actually, if you ask someone, a random person, starting with me, what is our fire assembly point?
They don't know. So each school had to have a fire extinguisher depending on the size
That
of
actually,
the school.
that actually works, by
And
the way.
the other problem you find, these fire extinguishers are supposed to be serviced. Now you find a fire extinguisher, it has been in that
Corner.
that corner for the last 20 years. You find its spin nozzle was removed or damaged, because you have to remove that. You find its trigger, what you use, is no longer working. But someone is assuming I have a fire extinguisher. Now those were the guidelines. But what is beating my understanding with this new directive? Because those were for already boarding sections approved. Now it is scaring to understand that we even have boarding sections that are illegal.
And that's where I would like to bring Sonko into this conversation. Now, with this new directive, the minister, the government is saying there should be a countrywide inspection of all education institutions. And the state minister in charge of primary education, Joyce Mariku Karuchu, said that the schools that are found to be illegally operating boarding sections should be closed with immediate effect. Now, speaking on behalf of a Ugandan out there, where has government been when these schools were operating?
Now that is the bigger question.
Because they're not new schools.
True, true. And when you look at most of the schools that actually start up, if I'm to take back our viewer to the journey of Ugandans getting into the boarding, idea or having boarding in schools, you realize that it was something that was brought up by the missionaries back in the time, where students would report to school, and most of the missionary-based schools were actually boarding schools, even up to today.
They were the elite schools.
Yeah, the elite schools. And they are the traditional schools that we have, where someone is supposed to come, you pack everything, you go. And initially, when you look at the reason as to why we had this level of boarding schools was to make sure that these people are in the same community, and that means their lifestyle was supposed to be monitored. It was more like a community whereby you have to follow the rules, the guidelines given by the school heads.
Basically, it was grooming
Exactly,
of young men
grooming
and women.
of young men and women. Now today, things have changed. Many offer boarding schools or boarding sections as a way of helping parents, especially, let's first of all even forget the money bit of it. Some actually put it as a way of helping parents, especially the working parents, to have their children in school, so that parents are not worried about going back home to take care of their children and the like. Because the reason is why some parents who are actually having daycare services for their children, it's because they cannot be able to take care of their children during day. And boarding schools offer or give you that chance for you to take your child in there until maybe a period of 3 months normally. That is how first term or second term operates. But then there is also an emergence of the fact that there is money related to it, especially with public schools. You do realize in public schools or government-aided schools, boarding is never part of the entire plan. And most of the government-aided schools that offer boarding, they've actually attached a certain fee for parents who are supposed to be putting their kids in boarding. And this is where you even see that some government schools have cut-off points. But when it comes to a boarding student, someone who's going to pay their own money, they will, at the end of the day, have to accept boarding because they weren't meeting the cut-off points of this public school. All they would do is, since they have $1 million or 1.5, they can easily take their child to the same school, but in boarding. So this is where the government failed. They failed to regulate how boarding schools are supposed to operate. So even today, a new school will just wake up in the morning and offer only boarding section services without even operating for daycare, because they know the best way to earn more money now is opening a boarding section, even when they can't meet the specific standards that include feeding and welfare.
So now it goes back to still the government. When you're giving out licenses for people to open schools, is the license given to a school to have both a day and boarding section, or is the license given for a school for one section, and if the school intends to later on transition into maybe a boarding section, do they get another license? How does it work?
No, it's actually one license.
One license?
What happens is, when you go to the ministry, you define clearly what the school is going to be like. Either you're setting up a day school and you get that license, or a day and boarding. And if you've noticed, most of the billboards, because that is a requirement, you'll find Chirabo Primary School
Mixed.
Then they will put day and boarding. Because the requirements for a day school, because you're not going to house these pupils, are different from a boarding school. So usually, most of the schools start as day schools. Previously, that was the order of the day. Then after, you apply to start a boarding section. But I think the biggest problem that we are having in this country is, certain services, if it were possible, shouldn't have been let to the public.
It shouldn't be the public.
Now, there is so much commercialization of our education sector today. I'll take you brief in the line of history. Most of the schools began as missionary schools in this country. Now, one would say our colonial masters wanted people who would help them administer and better foster their rule. So they looked for a class of people and trained them. When you hear about King's College, Gayaza, Girls' School, you see that they wanted a particular. Then another would say that the late of Sir Edward Mutesa, inviting these missionaries, they wanted civilization, but then they wanted in their faith to have people learned. Now from these missionary Islamic schools, we went to what we call community schools. That Najuma is educated, Sonko is educated, Robert is educated. We all come from Kabonero in Masaka. Then we have tested the value of education. We start a community school to educate. Now this school was never started because of profit. You get it? Because you've tested. Now, hell broke loose when we went into education for commercial basis.
And that is where the problem started.
And that is where the problem, and as we are going into this level, there wasn't proper regulation. That Chirabo, a fisherman, will look at Najuma, a journalist, a banker. In a short time, Najuma had 2 blocks. After 10 years, Najuma is having a school.
Actually, speaking of 2 blocks, sorry to interject. Yesterday on the news, there was also a report of a school that is a danger to
In
the
Chitebi.
learners in Chitebi. Actually, they have, what were those pillars holding the ceiling? They have already been told this ceiling can cave in any time. But guess what? Learners are still studying in these buildings. And the National Building Review Board is now saying, oh, we have now got to know, we will definitely do something about it. My question usually when buildings go down, or when school blocks go down and even the fires happen, is when these buildings are being erected, who is supposed to be there to see that everything is being done according to the guidelines and regulations given?
First, I would say to some level, maybe there is shortage in terms of human resource when it comes to the ministry to inspect, because you find a district like Watiso with over 20,000 schools. How many inspectors they have? or someone is sleeping on duty, not being very active.
But remember, you're giving a license to each school that comes up.
Exactly. So what
That
do
means
you
you're
do
supposed to
before you give
inspect.
the license?
You know,
Do you
have
know
to
how
first
many
inspect.
schools are in this country now, and leave alone not having a boarding
No,
license?
yes, I hear you.
They don't have
but
any license
No,
whatsoever.
I hear you on that, but let's talk about the schools
The
that
ones
have
that are
licenses.
licenses. That
Yes,
if you're
so-
giving someone a license today, you first go and inspect. Because I want to believe before you give anyone a license, it's more like if you go for a driver's driving license, they have to see how you're good at driving. You have to go for a driving test. So that means for any, regardless of the human resource or not, I want to believe the office that is responsible for giving out this license is supposed to first confirm. So I think we should start from there. That
Yes.
you're going to give someone a license for, let's say, a day and boarding school. Have you gone to the premises to see where are the children going to sleep? Are they going to be inconvenienced in one way or the other? Do the dormitories have enough space to accommodate, let's say, 100 students per term? And also you need to look at the food storage, because these are some of the things that the government is actually looking at to close down these boarding schools, because even the storage of the food is wanting.
You've ever had,
Last year we had an incident.
Exactly. You also have to look at, let's say, the sick bays. In case of any medical emergency, can this sick bay accommodate 10 or 20 students in a day? These are some of the things we really need to look at, because I want to believe we also have schools that meet these standards.
Many of
However,
them, yes.
there are those who have actually tarnished the entire image of boarding schools, because to them, it is a chance to tap in and get more money. So I think the government needs to check into the regulations, that if you're to regulate or give a license, you need to make an inspection there and then. And then also, to give a license of, let's say, to check and see if the people you gave a license are still operating under the clear guidelines you gave them.
Don't give
Exactly.
a license and then go sit back. For instance,
Yes.
this school in Busia, when you look at it, you're like, was anyone inspecting this school? You saw the structures, okay? And also, because of the advent of COVID-19, it also brought on our hands schools that were not supposed to be boarding schools. Because the government at some point said schools should have boarding sections because we were trying to avert infection and spread. So the schools that were categorically day schools started now turning classrooms into boarding sections. And you might find that these are some of the schools that are now operating boarding sections illegally. But it's been how many years since we opened up? Has someone been checking and to see that everything is in order? Because you see, Shirabo, I understand we have the challenge of human resource, but you can still not use it as an excuse, especially if we are going to lose lives. Yeah.
I think there is a problem here that we must analyze very well. One, we must understand that commercialization of education is with us, and we must be very careful to have proper regulation. Because, when you're doing something for business, it is all about maximization of profit. And some costs not going into them, a businessman may see that as additional to their profit. That's why one will tell you, you tell me to have a peak where these students can exercise. If I'm to buy this plot next to me, why is value for the money I'm going to inject? Because for them, they're not looking at the physical wellness of the pupils you're giving them. But they're looking at, if I'm going to get about 50, 70 million to buy this plot for a peak for my school, how am I going to recoup that money? Now,
Well, that's all we can do for this moment. Sure, I know you were getting fired up, but time is of the essence. But this conversation does continue on our X app. You can reach us there. The hashtag is UBCGMU, and share your views on the recent directive by the government to close all schools that are operating boarding sections illegally. Good Morning Uganda continues.
Pick of the day on UBC. was brought to you by
MTN Momo Pay is the easy way to pay. Dial star 165 star 3 hash or use the MTN Momo app. You don't need cash. MTN Momo Pay is safe and free.
Something weird is really happening. Okay, for lack of a better word, I can call it weird. But I think babies born in the 1990s can relate, because people, sand is palm sand, but nothing is happening. I remember days when we were a little bit little. Now we could be securing already our palm leaves, getting ready. I think some of the cultures that we have are really fading away. They are phasing out, but however much there is modernity that is coming in, however much there is technology and so many developments that are coming in, I think there are some cultures that we should really keep. These are the things that really define the Africanist in us, the Ugandanist in us, those things that differentiate us from other tribes, from other countries, things that differentiate us from other people, to be unique and to be uniquely us. So some things shouldn't really fade out. Maybe with the developments, maybe there is an app where people are now already getting their palm leaves and they're going to maybe shake them using their phones, clicking somewhere. I don't know, maybe you people can tell me, but maybe developments are really taking away the cultures that we should really preserve and take on for what? For the future generations. These are things that we need to teach our children. Our children need to teach them to our grandkids. These are the things that we need to cherish and say that, yes, these are the things that define us. Well, I am Irene Alena Misango, Uganda Uncovered, and this is the GME Tourism Express, where we talk about everything that you need to know about Uganda's tourism. We take you through the tourism sector, what you need to know, the trends, the news, the activities, food, landscapes, anything that you need to know about Uganda's tourism. And we show you why indeed we are called the Pearl of Africa. This is the perfect time for you to always tune in Monday to Thursday, 7:30. You're always here to know what is really happening in the world of tourism. Well, today we are going into the travel news. But before the travel news, the tourism sector in the country is really striking up to higher momentums. When you see other things that are happening, the industry is busy, so many people are getting interested, the dignitaries are getting interested, members of parliament are getting interested in the tourism sector. There is that buzz of interest that people are really getting into the sector, which is good. However, some skeptics also say that maybe this could also be another avenue for financial mismanagement, but if it is for genuine reasons, we really appreciate your efforts to see that you people are coming up to visit places, to engage your audiences, to see that they start touring and exploring Uganda. These are amazing efforts. But when you also look at the youth, these people don't even have any authorities, power. Some of them don't even have capital, but they're coming up with different innovations, different initiatives to see that we all push Uganda's tourism. And this is what we are all supposed to do. Tourism is not a one-man feat that I'm going to come and promote Uganda's tourism just as me, Irene Allen. No, we have to work together. Each effort is a brick to the future foundation that we all want for ourselves and for our country. Well, going into the travel news today, we are going through what really transpired in the week in the travel industry. And first, on Monday, something very great happened in the country, and that is the Duke of Edinburgh visited Uganda. He was set to stay in Uganda for 3 days, and he came to create more awareness about the Duke of Edinburgh International Awards, but also the impact that non-informal education can create to the youths of the country. So when he came to Uganda, he first met President Museveni at the State House, and then he also went to Buganda Kingdom, where he signed an MOU with Buganda Kingdom. To him, he says that as much as the youths are able to, as much as formal education is important, youths also get their real life skills outside classrooms. So he's telling people to engage more in, to get to understand their passion. The youths should understand their passion, their purpose, and place in life. So he signed an MOU with Buganda Kingdom, saying that the kingdom is really doing great for the youths in the kingdom, to see that they empower youths in the kingdom, but also Uganda as a whole. So it was a great move. Imagine having a member, a British royal member, visiting the country and the kingdom. It is really good. It takes us on the international scene. It brings a lot of attention to the country to see where is the British royal member visiting, why is he there. So it was, I think it was a plus for the country and also the kingdom. And something also good happened when he visited. I love the fact that every time we have such people coming into the country, there is a way tourism is engaged in. Now, after visiting all the schools that he was supposed to visit, he went and visited UWEC. We always say that UWEC, Uganda Wildlife Conservation and Education Center, gives a brief introduction about Uganda's diverse wildlife species that we have. So when you go and visit UWEC, we are basically giving you an introduction of what you should expect to see in our 10 national parks, but also the more than 10 game reserves that we have in the country. So he visited UWEC and he saw the diverse wildlife species that we have in the country. Probably, who knows, he could send back people to come and visit Uganda to explore the beautiful nature that we have in the country. But also, when you look at UK and Uganda posted on their X accounts, different accounts were posting about this, maybe several people could be attracted to come into the country. So it was a plus for Uganda to host the Duke of Edinburgh in the country. And still in the travel news, we have Nakai. Halima Nakai still scooped another silver medal in the 2024 Africa Games that are ongoing in Accra, Ghana. So remember, Nakai was the world champion in 2019. He also got a bronze medal in 2022. She brought a bronze medal. So you see, the game has been good for her. She specializes in the 800 meters a race in these Africa Games, and she's been really putting up our flag up there always. She never disappoints us. So even this time, she didn't fail the country. She's making us proud. She's putting us out there, and she's raising our bar so high on the international scale. That is good for us as the tourism sector. Another news that we have is that Jimmy Sekas' students, you know, this is almost the, okay, not the only, but one of the top culinary schools that we have in the country. So they participated in the international food competitions that were held in Kolkata, India, and they won. They emerged winners of this international food competition in India. This is a plus for the country, because when you look at the so many diverse tourism products that we have in the country, food is one that we shouldn't ignore, because no tourist comes in the country and they never have a meal. They are supposed to have at least a meal or two in a day. So every time you have a tourist, it is good for them to know about the so many foods that we have in the country. So having such a platform of like international food competitions and winning these, it is a plus for the country that we are putting out the talent that we have in our country, but also the diverse foods that we have in the country. So you should be sure that when you come to Uganda, you're not only going to enjoy the so many beautiful and palatable, delicious foods that we have in the country, but you're also going to get exposure to the talent that Ugandans have when it comes to preparing food. So Ugandans have talent there. So that is it that we had for you in the travel news. And today, what you shouldn't forget is that today, the 21st of March, is the International Tree Day. So I guess on this day, you're able to recognize the importance of trees and do the needful. We all need to do something about climate change, and tree planting is one of the things that we can do. Recently, everyone has been complaining about the heat in Kampala, like in the whole country. So there is a lot that we need to do, but if you can plant a tree, every time you get an opportunity, please do something, plant a tree. It is important for the climate change, and it is important just for the environment. Thank you so much. That is it that we had for you today in the GM Tourism Express, and coming up is Joram Paul Sonko with the business update.
Well, and it's now time for us to check into the world of business this morning. And it's good news for those who are participating actively in Uganda's economy. Not only those from the small and medium-sized enterprises, but looking deeper as well for those in the macro and those in the bigger enterprises, if I'm to put it in that way. From all the players in the day economy, and then those from the night economy, all of you are highly appreciated in regards to the first report that I have this morning, because according to the United Nations, they have announced that Uganda is now in, or is officially in, the lower middle income economy, or is now a lower middle income country. Not a middle income country, but from a lower perspective of the middle income, which, of course, by 2040, if you're to look at how far we are going, to see that we get into the middle income economies, you get to realize that we are taking the right strides as a country. And with this report, it's a big energizer for not only the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, but for all the players of Uganda's economy, the private sector, the public sector in the same space, and all the Ugandans at large, because your contribution is highly a driver for the growth of Uganda's economy. And when you look at this particular one, this is following impressive improvements according to the United Nations. This is following impressive improvements that have been notable, it's especially in health, education and income levels. And when you look at what the United Nations has actually been able to identify with some improvements in Uganda's health sector, when you look at the players in the private sector who have actually also contributed greatly to the growth of Uganda's health care systems, and then Uganda's education sector. Not only the fact that we are churning out quite a number of graduates every year, but also the quality of students being shunned, or rather being put into the workspace every other year. And then also looking at the fact that today, the level of skill-up institutions are also rising, which is an indication that the economy is steadily rising and also ready to develop the human capital that will definitely meet the standards of a developed country. Now, Susan Ngoji Namondo, who is the UN resident coordinator in Uganda, revealed this on Wednesday during the launch of the 2023-2024 Human Development Report at Makerere University yesterday, whose main speaker or guest of honor was the head of government business, or the Prime Minister of Uganda, that is Right Honorable Robina Nabanja. Now, this particular report showed that Uganda had made significant improvements in the Human Development Index, rising from a global ranking of 166 in 2 years, that is from 2022, down to 159 in 2024. Of course, in these rankings, the lower you're ranked, the higher you are performing. So when you look at this, from 166 in the global ranking of Human Development Index, you get to realize that in 2022 we were ranked 166. Now we are ranking 159 in 2024 for the 193 countries there are in the world, or those are the countries that are highly assessed or under the guidance of the United Nations and under the United Nations Development Program. Now, the elements that were assessed include income levels, health and education levels, and inequalities within the population. And according to the United Nations, this is something that Ugandans are highly improving at. So the improvement is visible, and there are tremendous changes. And of course, there are quite a number of high drivers into this particular growth. Now, according to the UNDP resident representatives, in the 2021-2022 HDR report, Uganda was placed in the category of low human development and position 166 out of the 191 countries and territories. Now, Uganda has for the first time moved to the category of medium human development, position 159 out of the 193 countries. Now, this is something we need to recognize and further celebrate. I have to mention again that quite a number of things that were highlighted, or the sectors that were highlighted for Uganda to be recognized as a low middle income economy is the improvements in the health sector, education, and of course, looking at the fact that the income levels are also changing in one way or the other. So we wait to see how the government intends to build onto this report to ensure that Ugandans do not lag in the next report. Because remember, the more you grow as a country, you expect to be receiving more recognitions of this nature. And with the fact that the oil and gas sector is taking shape come 2025, you highly expect that there will be some tremendous improvements and growth of Uganda's economy. Now let's head to Jinja in our next report, because the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Uganda has called for more focus and emphasis on the public financial management, citing some issues that need to be addressed. These remarks were made by the Vice President of the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Uganda, Ronald Mutumba, during the second Public Finance Management Conference that was held in Jinja. Now, the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Uganda is holding its second Public Finance Management Conference in Jinja under the theme Public Finance Management for Enhanced Service Delivery, which is designed to examine relevant actions for improving the public finance system for service delivery, and also engaging quite a number of residents, not only in Jinja, but all of those in the country to be part of these conversations. Now, while speaking to the gathering, Derek Nkanja, the Executive Director of the Institute, together with the Vice President, Ronald Mutumba, called for more focus and emphasis on the public financial management. The President of the Pan-African Federation of Accountants, Keto Kayemba, expressed the need to train more professional accountants that will help businesses and that will help business management grow within the country. And more emphasis was put on the element of professionalism, which is still lacking in many areas or in many sectors of the country. So improving accounting and, of course, financial management as a key pillar of growth in regards to business management in general would stir growth of Uganda's economy and also improve on how business is being run in Uganda. Now, the conference targets accounting officers, policy makers, economists, members of parliament, because, of course, they make the policies that affect or impact the business climate, and then the development partners, especially those in the private sector, and then certified public accountants and members of the public, among others, because this is a conversation that is entirely rotating around business management and how everyone can get involved. Now, lastly, from our business news this morning is we look at the forex market. Close of business Wednesday evening, courtesy of the Bank of Uganda. How are the various currencies trending or faring yesterday as you move out today to make some changes or to exchange some currencies? Opening time saw the US dollar buy at 3,874.88 while selling with 3,884.88. By midday, the US dollar was buying at 3,874.50 while selling at 3,884.50. Closing time, the US dollar was buying at 3,869.92, while selling at 3,879.92. Of course, when you look at it, it is actually dropping a little bit because it was already at 4,000 at the start of the year, rather the start of this month, but it's now dropping steadily to around 3,800. And the Great Britain pound, 4,922.15, while selling at 4,934.87. Now the euro was buying at 4,205.05, while selling at 4,215.92. That has been static in there, a few shillings of the changes. Now the Kenyan shilling was buying at 29.09, while selling at 29.17 shillings, as the Tanzanian shilling was buying at 1.51, while selling at 1.52. No changes with that because it was the same on Tuesday. Then the South African rand was buying at 204.46, while selling at 204.99 shillings. So that is how you will find the forex market for those that will be out exchanging some currencies. More business news, you can follow details on UBC's official social media accounts for details of the same, or the website. I'll be back on Monday with business updates. So stick around to Good Morning Uganda though, because Olive Monica Najuma is right here to take you through and prepare you for the traffic madness that you may experience in the Kampala metropolitan areas. Good morning.
Traffic madness it is, and we are going to be looking at that right now. My name is Olive Monica Najuma. Thank you so much for sticking with us. Now let's jump right into it, and of course we are going to start with the environs of Namugongo area. This road is currently under construction, and this is going to go on up until May. So how does the traffic situation look like in this area? Starting off from the areas of Sunday, we see that, there is a smooth flow of traffic, but also there is some red zones and orange zones that are coming up, indicative of traffic jam that you might experience right ahead. But for now, it is not so bad, nothing to worry about for now. Yeah, keyword order for now. Now, moving forward, looking at the trading center in Chaliwajala, we see that coming through from Namgongo Road side, there is a bit of traffic jam coming from that area connecting to the trading center that is in Chaliwajala. Now, continuing with the road that brings you from Namgongo through Chaliwajala, going through Nalia, that's where we are at. And at least as of now, we see that for the most part, there is smooth flow of traffic in this section. Now, as we approach the roundabout at the bypass, the traffic situation now seems to be starting off, but still not much to worry about. What you see on your screen, that is the northern bypass roundabout in Nalia. And from what we see, it is that there is smooth flow of traffic coming through from the areas of Namugongo and Chaliwajala. And of course, I see a bit of traffic jam right around the roundabout, but I think this is because of the traffic lights that are at the bypass right now. Now, moving forward still with the Nalia Road from the roundabout, we have smooth flow of traffic going up ahead. Even where Majwala Road connects to Nalia Road, we just have a few orange zones here and there. And of course, I see a bit of traffic coming in through from Kaduyu Road. I think what the traffic I'm seeing here is because of that huge pothole around Foxwoods. Other than that, that road should be smooth as of this minute. But now we join the main road from Kaduyu Close We join the main road. We from what I see from Bogo Road, that is the road that is bringing you from the areas of Chiran, Najera, and Chwatule. I see that there is a little bit of traffic jam in this section, but still not intense, and all of it is feeding into Chwatule Road that is now bringing you to the areas of Ntinda. Now in this section, we are experiencing a bit of a traffic jam that traffic jam that is usually taking you through the valley past Eliana Hotel and St. Francis Primary School. Yes, and of course, moving ahead, still following that route, we see that actually this morning it looks really good. There is a smooth flow of traffic in this area. Now looking at the feeder roads coming through from still to join this road, I see Kalinabiri Road looks pretty good. And as we now connect to the traffic lights within the center of Ntinda, that's when we are now experiencing a bit of traffic jam coming through from Chisasi side, joining that section, the junction in Ntinda. Now, from the traffic lights within the middle of Ntinda, as we go to Bukoto Ntinda Road, that's when we now start experiencing delays on the road going to Old Chira Road right about now. Well, we won't go any further than this. That has been the update for our traffic this morning. If you're coming from the areas of Namgongo, Chaliwajala, Nalia, going through Ntinda, that's how the traffic madness looks like as of this morning. My name is Olive Monica Najuma. Thank you so much for sticking with us. Up next is Agenda with Robert Chirabo Nyonyintono, and later on, Ruben Mpima will be coming through with sports updates.
Pick of the day on UBC.